Black Bourbon Society. And we're here again for another session, a masterclass with Alex Cunningham, co-founder of SLANE Irish Whiskey. So glad to be with you again, Alex. And
good to see you.
We are going through a deconstructed tasting, right?
Yes, indeed. So SLANE is about big flavor. It's Irish whiskey amplified. So we're ramping up those flavors. And what I wanted to do today was to actually dive into the liquid and dissect it, if you will, by looking at the 3 different casks that make up our triple cask blend. We're actually going to be tasting those individually and going backwards and forwards between that and the SLANE blend to basically pull out the flavor notes that each of those casks brings to the party. And collectively, that's what makes SLANE a big, full flavored, rich, complex whiskey. So it's a bit of fun, and we're going to be pairing it with some food items as well. So if you're doing this at home, even though you may not have the deconstructed liquids in front of you, you can still get involved by sampling some of these food groups to try and pull out and accentuate the flavors that are in the whiskey.
Okay, so let's get started. Where do we get started?
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're actually going to start with the first of our 3 casks. And in our triple cask whiskey, the first one comes from America. It actually comes from Kentucky. This is the Virgin American White Oak cask. So this is a brand new barrel made in Louisville at the Brown-Forman cooperage. And using a new oak barrel in Irish whiskey is pretty unusual because, as we went into in the last session, that, of course, is how you make American whiskey. Most Irish whiskey tends to be matured in barrels that have already been used. So this is brand new. So we're going to pick up our little sample of the Virgin Oak cask, and we're going to compare this with the SLANE. Now, the first thing you'll notice is there's a nice amount of color in the virgin liquid. And what we're going to do is we're going to start, after having looked at the color, SLANE is a little tad darker. That's because of the combination of the other barrels. But we're going to just nose the 2 side by side first. So first, I'm going to nose the SLANE. Getting nice, sweet, aromatic note.
Yeah.
There's some brown sugar in there, but there's very distinctively vanilla. And now if you cross over to the Virgin Oak, it's lighter, okay? You don't have the heavy brown sugar, but there's a lovely sweet aromatic note there. And there is a trace of the vanilla. Now this is where we get into our first food pairing. So Samara, I think you got some vanilla there, right?
I do.
Okay, so wonderfully aromatic. You can just give that a nose as well. Now, I decided to go, I'm a big fan of ice cream. So I dived out of vanilla and I went straight for the vanilla ice cream because whiskey and ice cream, what a combo. It's fantastic and it's great fun to do. You can actually pour a little bit of whiskey over your ice cream at home and it makes it infinitely better. So I'm going to have a little taste of my vanilla ice cream here, which I'll be finishing after the session. And that's going to coat my palate in that lovely rich vanilla. And I'm now going to have a little taste of the Virgin.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So,
and what it does, yeah, it like really pulls that vanilla out. Now, the reason the vanilla is there is because of the way the wood is treated. Now, you can either char or toast a barrel. And Brown-Forman have decades of research and a big laboratory looking into different levels of toasting and charring. And a good way I like to think about this is when I'm at home with my kids on the farm, we sit around and over there you'd be doing your s'mores around the campfire. We just do the plain old marshmallows here. But Casper, my 8-year-old son, loves the marshmallows, but he's also a bit of a pyromaniac and he cannot resist setting his marshmallow on fire. So he will stick it into that fire and he'll just watch it burn. And if it survives, it's all blackened and it tastes one way. Rory, my other son, he's much more careful and cautious. He will slowly turn it above the flame and it's going to brown, right? And that's more edible, tastes completely different. And it's a bit like that when you're cooking wood sugar as opposed to burning it or toasting rather than charring. And when you do that, it's more gentle on the wood sugars and it draws out vanillins, and that gives you vanilla. So the reason why SLANE, and you'll get it on the virgin oak, has that vanilla hit on the nose, which then carries over into the final blend, is all down to that heavily toasted wood note. So if you have another little sip of the virgin.
I've been sipping the whole time.
Excellent. What you will notice is it's quite light on the mid palate. It's not a huge amount of presence, but there is a nice little bit of a woody, spicy note right at the end on the finish.
Right.
Okay. And if you have another little sip of SLANE, what you should notice is that that is going to deliver a little bit of woodiness right on the finish. So what the virgin oak cask does is it delivers right at the beginning on the nose and right at the end on the finish. So that's the first of the 3 barrels, okay? And vanilla ice cream with SLANE is an absolutely beautiful combination. Now, let's go back to SLANE on the nose. And we're going to start diving now into our second barrel. Now, this is what we call a seasoned barrel. Now, a seasoned barrel just means that someone's been in that barrel before you get it. Not a living person, of course, that would be very creepy. It just means another liquid. And in this case, it is another American barrel. So one of the great things about being part of Brown-Forman is that we have access to their barrels. So the American whiskey rules, which you and your members will be all too familiar with, you can't reuse barrels. And we are very grateful for that. So those barrels are going to come over from America. They're going to arrive into distilleries in Ireland and Scotland, and we then fill and mature our whiskey in those barrels. The problem is that there's not really any track or trace, and you're buying those barrels in bulk, so you don't actually know what specific liquid has been in what barrel. But because we're part of Brown-Forman, we realized that we had an opportunity to do things a little bit differently. So we actually focus primarily for our seasoned cask on one particular barrel, and that is a Tennessee whiskey barrel. And of course, we all know which Brown-Forman whiskey comes from Tennessee. That'll be Mr. Jack Daniels. So that barrel is going to travel over the Atlantic with a little bit of liquid left in it because it's going to dehydrate and warp if it's not in there. Right. So when it arrives in Ireland, we're going to take out that bung, we're going to breathe in, and if it smells good, and it nearly always does, we will pour our whiskey in on top. And the liquid that is in the barrel plus what's soaked into the wood is going to mix directly with our whiskey. And that means we get a very specific flavor note carrying over. So if you want to nose your SLANE, okay, and then pick up your seasoned, you'll notice the seasoned liquid is going to be paler than the virgin and definitely paler than the SLANE. This is because in the making of the Tennessee whiskey, a lot of the color's already been sucked out of the wood. So there's going to be less color given, but it really rounds out the whiskey very nicely. So if you nose on the 2 and you go back to the SLANE, as opposed to the virgin, which is quite light on the nose, this seasoned liquid has a lot more body, a lot more presence, and it's got a heavy kind of brown sugar, like Demerara, almost into Muscovado sugar note. And that is definitely there in the SLANE. So behind that vanilla, you've got that heavier sweet aromatic note. SLANE has a nice, like, heavy sweet nose, and it's really down to the seasoned cask. Right. So it's delicious. Now, there is another note in there, which Casper, the pyromaniac son of mine, also is a big fan of, which is banana. And I love bananas, all right? And banana is a note that you'll find in Jack, and I think it's carried over beautifully to the SLANE. So what I've actually got here in front of me is I've got some freshly cut banana. This is a reasonably ripe one. You got banana chips there. You can use either fresh or you can use dehydrated. I like to use the fresh ones because what it does is that sticky banana just coats the palate beautifully. And SLANE and banana is an amazing combination. I've had some fantastic banana daiquiris made with SLANE. If you're a fan of making banana bread, use whiskey, a bit of whiskey in the recipe. It's delicious. So it's just a great combo. So that brown sugar ripe banana note is almost like a banana foster note. So I'm going to have a little nibble of banana. And then I'm going to go and taste the seasoned whiskey. And hopefully what you'll find is it's actually going to pull out that banana note.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's why SLANE's a great whiskey to cook with, pairs really well with any desserts, and it just gives it a lovely feel. So I've just tasted the season, and if you go back to the SLANE now, have a little taste of the SLANE, maybe have another little bit of banana again. And see if you can pull out that sweet, sticky, ripe banana note. So this is a tropical kind of note in Irish that you wouldn't necessarily expect to find. And this is why cheeky drinks, daiquiris, other things can work surprisingly well with SLANE. So it's a very different animal. And I kind of see that the seasoned Hennessy is the glue that holds SLANE together.
Right.
And the reason that we mature these barrels separately and then blend them back together is it gives us so much more control. It's a little bit like mixing the music. You can dial up or dial down the impact of that particular barrel. Whereas if you take the same batch of whiskey and you do it sequentially, you kind of lose control. Whereas if you want to create better balance or a better tune, then by doing it separately and then bringing them together, you just got more nuances in terms of dialing up or dialing down certain flavors. So that is 2 American barrels. So SLANE is triple cast, okay? And we needed a 3rd barrel. And when we were initially talking with Brand Foreman about what barrel we were going to use, they were like, Alex, you can have, I mean, we make lots of different whiskeys. We got Woodford, we got Double Oak, we got Old Forester. And it was tempting because those are great whiskeys. There's nothing wrong with those at all. And I'm still on my bourbon learning journey. But I was concerned that if we used 3 American barrels, what was going to happen is it would end up with an Irish whiskey that just tasted a little bit too like an American whiskey.
Right.
And we're Irish, right? So we needed to kind of balance and pull back to maybe something a little bit more traditional. Now, the guy who got me into Irish whiskey when I was a lot younger than I am now was my grandpa, and he was a lovely man. And I have some great Irish whiskey drinking memories with him. But he was a fan of Irish whiskeys that had a sherry cask influence. And before American whiskey took off and that supply of barrels became available to us, we would have tended to use either barrels that were made in this country by coopers here, or fortified wine that was coming in from Europe, from the likes of France and Spain, because wine didn't travel very well. And so they figured out fortifying it meant it lasted the journey better. And that's where port and sherry really came from. And those casks were emptied. And then, of course, they became available, and the whiskey distillers started using them to store their whiskey in. And that the association between port, sherry, and whiskey goes back a long time. So I persuaded Brand Foreman to come with me. We went over to Jerez. If you have not been to Jerez, and I know it's difficult for people to travel right now, but it is some of the best food and spirits and wine combinations you will get. I had the most amazing meal of, it was actually pork fat and even more pork fat, which looked fairly questionable, but when combined with a glass of cold Pinot was outstanding. So they appreciate good flavor here, and that is where sherry is made. It has to be made in Jerez. So we settled on a family, a 3rd generation business, and they produce absolutely first-rate Oloroso sherry cask. And that's the one we settled on because it's a medium, sweet-bodied sherry that is going to do great things for our whiskey. So we ship the barrels in winter because in summer it gets pretty hot and that barrel's going to dehydrate quickly. So we ship them over to Ireland in winter. And here they really have to leave quite a lot of liquid in the bottom of the barrel so that it stays hydrated on its journey. And when it arrives in SLANE, again, we remove the bung. If you've ever had the chance to nose a freshly drained sherry barrel, if you visit a distillery, it's one of the most beautiful smells. And we're going to get into some of those nosing notes now. So we've saved the sherry till last, probably because it's the biggest out of the 3 liquids. So I invite you on this note to just pick up your sherry glass here. the sherry cask liquid. And this one, you can just kick back and just breathe deeply and take it in. This got the most wonderful nose. And it's very different from the other three, because what it's going to bring in is a fruit cake. So you're into your dried fruits. Yeah. So I believe in your tasting kit there, Samara, you've got some raisins and some dates. And either of those will do. You can even pair it with figs or prunes, any of those lovely dried fruits. And you can actually just know. So what I've got here, I got a little bowl of raisins here, and I've got some allspice. And so I did this earlier, just put a little bit of allspice on top of the raisins, mix that together, and you've got a really tasty little snack. But it just beautifully complements. If I nose those now, and then nose against the whiskey, it's just a beautiful combination. And it's actually accentuating some of those dried fruit notes that are there in the nose. Now, I haven't tasted the whiskey yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a little nibble of these raisins. So if you've got your raisins or your dates, just have a little nibble of those.
Yeah. Take a bite of dates.
So this kind of, yeah, you're very much into kind of fruitcake territory. And then have a taste of the seasoned liquid.
Yeah, I mean, just up the nose. I love sherry cask anything.
Yeah, but I mean, this liquid is beautiful. And the allspice, or you can use, if you want to try it with other spices, nutmeg works well. Clove is a little strong, but there is a little hint of clove in there. And it's fun just to even nose. You don't even have to taste the spices, and then just see if you can pick that out in the liquid. And you certainly get that on the sherry cask. And when you have that taste, you're getting all of the dried fruits, but then there's this beautiful brown or baking spice right on the finish.
Yeah.
Which is different to the wood spice that came from the Virgin, but it's probably the long lingering finish. And if you put your sherry down and now go back to your SLANE liquid,
it all makes sense.
It all starts to come together.
Yeah.
So there it is. There's that fruitcake note. And now it's still going on. And I've got that lingering finish and getting a bit of the wood spice from the Virgin. But now that lovely lingering nutmeggy kind of baking spice note, which is coming from the sherry cask. And it's still lingering. And when we designed SLANE, we wanted to make it big, full flavored. It's Irish whiskey amplified. But it's about something that delivers a really good long finish and hopefully leaves you back wanting to go for another sip. So I suppose what this session demonstrates is that we actually created 3 different whiskeys.
Yeah.
And those 3 different whiskeys are then combined to make a blend, which is SLANE. And this is where blending is so much fun. And we made hundreds of different blends, and we were tasting all the time. That was the tough part of the job, but to get the balance right between the 3 is really important. So 3 very different whiskeys blended into one, and that's what SLANE is all about.
Well, it is phenomenal. I love the way that you broke this down, because you can really taste each one of the layers in SLANE now. I am most impressed, honestly, with the Virgin cask, simply because it is so vanilla.
Yeah.
Those that, have been following me and Black Bourbon Society for a while have known that I'm typically blind to vanilla. I can't smell it.
Oh, okay.
However,
we got you here.
I was definitely able to smell it and pick it up with my sample. And then the taste is just so vanilla ice cream. It's overpowering. I've never experienced that before. So for me, overpowering is is a good thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just really having that strong vanilla note through was pleasant for me to experience in the whiskey. I also loved the seasoned cask. You can definitely taste the banana in that. But truly the home run, the thing that kind of marries it all in together is that sherry cask. And it just makes this whiskey phenomenal. So this has been a great experiment breaking this down. This is awesome.
Excellent. Well, it's always been a lot of fun, and I would encourage anyone at home, do play with your whiskey. Whiskey is a wonderful liquid, but the great thing is that there's so much flavor there, and you can do this with SLANE, but you can do it with any whiskey. Is try different food morsels with it because it completely changes what happens on the palate. Cheese is another great area to explore with Irish whiskey and SLANE in particular. But, get out your ice cream, get out your SLANE, make your smoothies, make your banana breads. Don't be afraid to, experiment, have fun. SLANE is designed to be approachable, but it's about having a bit of fun as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you again for another amazing session on SLANE and really breaking down the components that all go into making it. This has been an amazing series, and we look forward to working with you in the future. So thank you. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you so much, Samara. Take care. All the best from SLANE. Sláinte.
Yeah. Cheers.